Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to today's session with myself, Fabian Buckley. Hope everybody can hear me. Please let me know if you can't see my screen or if there's anything else that you'll need assistance with. Please speak up so that I know that there's a concern, okay? So we've scheduled us from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock for those that are for using South African time. I know we do have some international guests as well with us. So I'll try and make it as short and sweet as possible, but as most importantly, as informative as possible. Excuse me, I just want to add a few more people that's coming in the lobby. It's a bit tough. I've asked my son to help me, but he's not on yet. So I got a multitask this evening. Okay, so as I said, welcome to today's session with myself, Fabian Buckley. I'm the director of HSE for WIB Construction and Safety, also the CEO of HSE Connection Point, which is a non-profit organization, and also currently a HSSE head for Power China. Okay, so every incident is an opportunity to learn, not someone to blame. The author of this statement is anonymous. Now, we'll obviously go into a few different aspects and a few techniques now this evening, having various discussions, and one of the topics that we will bump into explains this quite nicely. All right, so we know that for every incident that we want to investigate, what we always have to ask ourselves ultimately, what is our intention? And we're not only talking about the intention of finding out what are the root causes or what are the contributing factors, causal factors, etc. But what are we trying to achieve when we are conducting an investigation? So I'm gonna go into some explanations on things. I'll give you a little bit of my own personal experiences as well. But I think it's important that these are also golden nuggets because we learn from each other. And for those that know me in the industry, you know that I'm somebody that's always hungry to learn. I don't think that I know everything. I never ever act or believe that I know everything. I am a sponge that's trying to absorb as much information as I possibly can. And we learn every day. We learn from each other. We learn from even our children. So that's the mentality that we need to have, always curious. So why do we investigate incidents? So this is obviously a bit of the normal information that one needs to know, because obviously we have a few novices in the session as well. That will also some others will also be watching the session to learn from it as well. So we got to go into the fundamentals, but we also go into the deeper aspects as well as we move on, right? So the purpose of an incident investigation is not to assign blame. Please, ladies and gentlemen, understand this. This is not to assign blame. Something that many safety professionals, including myself, have found ourselves at some point in our lives sucked into this blame game. Okay, especially when it comes to incident investigations. This is a dangerous ground. We do not want to be in a place where we are looking to blame somebody. We're looking to get rid of somebody or fire somebody. Sometimes we find ourselves in situations where we are investigating an incident and maybe there's a construction manager or supervisor or a worker even at times that we don't like. Maybe we've had a run-in on site on site with them on a few occasions, and now we feel we have the perfect reason or ammunition to use against this person to get rid of them. So that's a dangerous ground that none of us want to find ourselves in as professionals, okay? So it is to understand what's happened, why it happened, and how to make sure it never happens again. Effective investigations serve the entire organization from the frontline worker to the boardroom. So, excuse me, the first thing we're looking at is preventing of reoccurrence, okay? Stop the same incident from happening again. This is the common stuff. If you've done a few of your root cause analysis courses or incident investigation courses, you're going to find a lot of these statements, which are a very common factor, okay? But there's obviously, as I said, there's going to be a few nuggets as well within this discussions. And I'm going to also open it up at the end for open discussions between us, so that people can also share their own experiences and a few aspects that they feel are going to add a lot of value to us. Please, if I can ask if you can just mute yourself, especially those that have joined now. Thank you. So we also there to need to identify root causes, go beyond surface level explanations. Okay. Next, we need to improve our systems for the environment, not just the person. Very, very important. And obviously we need to protect employees, keep your workforce safe every day. And how do we do that? Obviously from lessons learned. Meet legal requirements, fulfill your regulatory obligations. I'm sure many of your countries that you are from, those that are from South Africa know that we have very stringent safety legislations as far as the OSH Act is concerned and the various regulations, and also the Mine Health and Safety Act, minerals regulations. And we find that with these, they obviously require us to conduct investigations. It's a legal obligatory requirements. As I said, from those that are from other countries, I'm sure that your legislations that you work from within your own country or in those that you work in, you find that they have similar criteria, similar requirements as far as conducting investigations are concerned. And then obviously from an organizational learning perspective, we need to build a culture of continuous improvement. Okay. People really come to work intending to make mistakes. Our job is to understand why normal people made normal decisions under the circumstances they faced. So, what should be investigated? Every organization, regardless of size or industry, should have a clear policy on what triggers a formal investigation. The list is broader than most people assume. Waiting for a serious injury before investigating means missing countless warning signs along the way. Now, obviously, we look at injuries and fatalities because that is some of the most important aspects of what we're trying to do. We've identified that there's been a serious injury or even a fairly minor injury, but sometimes we also look at what we call potential hurt level. So when we talk about a potential hurt level when it comes to incident investigations, that potential hurt level can be a factor where the outcome of that incident could have resulted in a fatality or in a fatality or in a serious injury of a person being possibly permanently disabled, etc. So we treat those incidents in the same light. We don't look at it as, oh, it just resulted in a minor first aid or in a near miss incident. It could have resulted in a serious incident, so we will treat it as such. Many organizations you would work for or clients that you would have worked for, you would have heard the terminologies like SIF or SIP or what's the other one? Your high potential incidents as well. These are your common uh, uh, phrases that these organizations use, which basically all boil around all around the same situation or the same thing, right? What they're trying to achieve is to highlight that this item, this specific incident had a high potential. On an actual hurt level, it might have been low, but on a potential hurt level, it was high, right? Then obviously we look at your property and equipment damage, which is your property damage, equipment failures, vehicle accidents, fires, and all signal underlying systemic failures before a person is actually hurt, right? And then we have our near misses are often the greatest opportunity to prevent future serious injuries. They reveal hazards before harm occurs. Never ignore them. And this is something that I've learned through the years in various companies that I work for. You get some companies, and it's sad to say, some organizations, some companies I've worked for, even in the Middle East, where a lot of the management, some even from the client side, or those were those that promoted us hiding incidents. And the the sickening part about it is that there's so much there's so much good learnings from those incidents, even if there were lost time injuries or medical treatments, etc. Many of those, if we done proper investigations on them and we implemented proper controls, we could have prevented a lot of the other incidents that came thereafter. And I'm not saying this as somebody that's proud to say it. I'm actually sad to say that this is what I've experienced within the industries through the years, when it comes to incident investigations. And many of them are done very haphazardly. They're done to tick a box just to get us through the process if you have conducted an investigation. And then it's just to, okay, let's just give a couple of control measures, corrective measures, and then we move on. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is something that we don't want to find ourselves in. And then obviously we have our environmental incidents, which are spills, emissions, and environmental releases that also carry legal, reputational, and ecological consequences that demand thorough investigations. All right. So I think we've covered everything in a nutshell from a HSE perspective as to what we would ensure that we are investigating. Right. So the first response, the actions taken in the minutes immediately following an incident are critical. A well-executed first response protects people, preserves evidence, and sets the foundation for a thorough investigation. Speed and discipline are both essential. Now, I like to interact on a lot of my trainings that I do or discussions that I have. So I'm going to also open it up now for others to share. Just quickly, if we look at this from what the information that I've shared in this deck, speed and discipline are both essential. Why does somebody feel that speed and discipline are both essential when conducting a proper or thorough investigation? Anybody? Please feel free.
I think if we don't um, start with it and do it at appropriate speed, then it it basically fades away. So if we prioritize it and we speed up the process and do our due diligence, we get the best result.
Perfect. That sounds like you, Marijan. I can't see
Yes.
on my side what is okay. No, that's excellent, and you answered it correctly. We want to always strike, as I say, strike while the iron is hot. Get the information fresh from the scene, from the people, so that nobody can come in and start fiddling with evidence, fiddling with the scene, speaking to the witnesses or the injured party, calling them aside and starting to make them change their stories. Believe me, I'm sure many of you guys have experienced it. If you're long in the game, you would have experienced this on a regular. So our objective is it's the same like with the police officers. The way they treated us, they got that 48-hour rule, get to the scene, find the evidence, trace back what happened, and try their best to allocate the witnesses, and then move back to find out, okay, who actually committed this murder, especially for murder cases. I don't know if you've watched any of these detective programs, etc. You would have seen that this is the mentality and the mindset of how they follow, and they stick to that 48 hours like it is gospel, so it's so important for them, and it's the same with us as safety professionals. We need to do the same. Treat that scene as a murder scene. Come to that area, make sure that you have your people allocated that are taking the witnesses aside, separating the witnesses, taking the people, making them feel relaxed, especially if it was a fatal incident. I've investigated 3 fatal incidents in my life, and again, I'm not proud to say that, but I can tell you it's one of the worst investigations to do, because you know that the situation, you know the result, you know the family that's affected. So there's all these emotions that are involved in this whole situation when you are conducting these investigations. It's not just somebody's cut their finger and they've gotten 4 stitches, or somebody broke their leg and life goes on after their leg has been healed, you know. This is now people's lives that have unfortunately been lost, and now you come to that situation and it's all these emotions that are involved. And then it's the worry, especially when you're in the Middle East. The guys that have worked in the Middle East will tell you it's not a nice place to be in, especially when there's fatal incidents, because you as the HSE manager, there's a very high chance that you are going to get locked up and put into jail until it can be proven that you were not negligent in how this person died. It's gotten slightly better through the years, but believe me, it's still a factor. All right, so sorry, I just want to add in a few others that are waiting in the lobby. Apologies. I hope these are the last two. Okay. All right, so what do? We got to make the area safe. We eliminate or control any ongoing hazard before anything else. That is also very, very important, ladies and gentlemen. When we're talking about an incident that's taken place on a project or in a company, the first and foremost thing we need to understand is there a potential for what has happened to cause further harm to anybody else or to the environment or anything else? Do we need to shut off valves? Do we need to switch off electricity or isolate? Do we need to obviously the common factors is remove everybody from the area to ensure that nobody else can be affected, being injured, and also you don't want onlookers coming around. Everybody wants to come and look at the scene of what's happened, and you also don't want that as well. All you want to do is make the area safe, barricade the area off, ensure that nobody else is coming in that area, ensure that emergency response is coming if they are required, if they have not yet come to the scene and they're not yet assisting the injured parties. And you start working your way from that to ensure first and foremost is, are the people safe? Is the area contained? Has the evidence been contained? Have we started taking photographs? Have we separated the witnesses to areas where they are not sitting together and they changing, or they're coming up with a story that they want to sell? And that's why it's the best to separate the people as early as possible, take them to separate. Okay, always make sure that when you are starting with your questions, you don't just start exactly when the incident occurred. You always start, can you tell me anything about this incident from the morning? What happened? Talk to me about your morning. How did things go? What happened? And you start the process off in that way. Also, make the witnesses feel, or the injured party feel, as relaxed as possible. Do not make them feel like you are antagonizing them or you bombarding them with 100,000 questions. Make them feel as relaxed as possible, and then you start with your questioning. Okay, making sure that you take down the statements. If a person prefers that you take the statement down, especially if it's a person that's not non-English or not in your mother tongue, write down the message, the statements, and then confirm it with them. And then you make sure that they date it and they sign it. That is very, very important for your investigation process. I've seen so many mistakes, so many times that you have safety professionals that are taking chances. Their statements are poor quality. And then you got statements again that are not signed by the witnesses or by the injured party, and then you find that even if you're using it in a serious situation or a serious investigation that comes out of that, from an inquiry or whatever that the government might institute based on the incident, you find that that statement doesn't stand up even for that inquiry, or stand up in the court of law if it has to get to that point. So it's very, very important that we take note of that, okay? Especially with our statements. Care for the injured persons. Summon first aid and emergency services immediately if they have not already been summoned or they are not already at the scene. Most cases you go to when there's incidents, you'll find that the first aiders and the paramedics, etc., are already on scene. But if not, you make sure that you are the one calling them and you make sure that they get there as soon as possible. Okay. Next, we prevent secondary incidents, as we've mentioned. We cordon off the area, we keep other workers clear of the scene, and we make sure that nobody else can get injured from the specific incident itself. Next, we need to secure and preserve the scene. Notify management is very important. Notify the clients as well. Photograph evidence, note environmental conditions, and identify witnesses without delay. Right. Then we begin documentation. We start recording facts, observations, and timelines immediately as memory fades very fast. Now, if you're working in the mining sector, you know you have heard the terminology that they use a lot. They call it in loco. In loco is in location investigation that is being conducted after a serious incident, fall of ground, a fire, or a fatality has occurred. Okay, we do an location investigation where we go to the scene, and that's where we start the process of the investigation. Okay. Now, what I like to do from my perspective is as well, I like to sit down with the team, whether it's myself with the contractors and their safety team, etc., that is there after the incident has occurred and the injured has been removed or they've been transferred to hospital. We then go together, sit around a table in a boardroom preferably, and then you start writing down on the whiteboard the information relating to what we would call is a preliminary investigation. As part of the in loco, our preliminary investigation, we would then sit around the table and then we start writing. Okay, what is it that we need? I like to utilize something that guides me. Some people use a 4P, I use a 5P. Okay. So I'll start off with the team around the table. We firstly establishing, okay, let's look at the people firstly, because why? It's fresh in the people's minds. We don't want them to lose the information. So what do we start to do? We start to get the people, the witnesses together, and they need to start giving their statements, as we've previously discussed, right? Separated separately in their own corners or in their own offices so that nobody can sit and start fabricating, coming up with stories and start making up lies in most cases, okay? Why? Because people are nervous. People want to protect people. People are scared of fear of reprisal. There's various reasons why people start lying. They start feeling like their bosses are going to fire them. They're going to lose their jobs, etc. Right? So now we've gotten them in the core in the various areas. We now started with the witness statements. You as the lead investigator, you can now start spreading out your people. If you are a person, let's say you are a manager or officer or senior officer, whatever your position is, and you have multiple people under you when you are leading that investigation, it is now the time that you need to start delegating responsibilities to your team members and start separating them, splitting them up to say, okay, Jefferson, I need you to go in and conduct an interview with witness A. Excuse me, Marizan, I need you to take witness B. Sipo, I need you to take witness C. Okay? Give us, this is the information that we want. These are the kind of questions you need to ask. You're going to especially use your stronger staff that understand the processes. Okay? But those that don't know, you can guide them, you can teach them, you can explain to them what you want them to do. You can even give them a small written template or sample of the information that you want from their side so that you make sure that the information that is gathered is going to be something useful in your investigation. Okay. Then from there, I look at from the P's, I look at people. So we're looking at the injured party. Okay, the person's been transported to hospital. Let's leave them. We'll go and visit them tomorrow, see how they're doing, and see if they are fine for us to get a statement from them. Okay. As I said, we're gonna go to the witnesses that were present. Secondary, you have primary witnesses, secondary witnesses, And then you have, for an example, maybe the supervisor or foreman that the gentleman or lady is reporting directly to. And then from that, we will ensure that those people give us the statements that we're looking for and in the format and in the way that we want it done. Okay. I think we've exhausted that discussion now. So after we've looked at the P, which is for people, we've obviously been at the scene. So we're looking at the place. When we go to the place, we're looking at the scene itself, where the person was injured. Was there any what is the condition of the place when we got there? Was there proper housekeeping? We're looking at the weather conditions, temperature, and various aspects relating to that, right? So that will cover us for the second P, for the place. Then we look at the parts. Now we're looking at the parts relating to the activities of what the person was doing, where they were working. Was there any PPE present at the scene? What tools was the person using, etc. And then from that, what we would do with that information, we would then start bagging and tagging. Okay. So I call it bagging and tagging. That's similar to if you've worked in a material coordinating role, you would have identified that how do we bag and tag stuff when it comes to projects, right? So now you start bagging and tagging your evidence. There's a hard hat that was kept. It fell, yeah. Is there checked it? Is there any blood? Was it the injured party? Yes, it was. Okay. Now we take it, we put it into a bag, we seal it, we then indicate it as evidence 1, evidence 2, evidence 3. After we've taken photographs and video footage of the area to understand where the items had fallen and all of that. So that can also give us a good understanding whether a person was actually wearing the PPE or not during the incident that had occurred. A good example is like if a person received a cut on their finger, then obviously there should be a cut on the glove if they were wearing the gloves. You can turn the glove inside out and you can look inside if there's any blood or any piece of limb or something that could be in the glove itself. Okay. The same thing would apply, for example, a person wearing a safety harness. Okay, maybe you look at it. The safety harness was off the person's body. The hooks were attached, but the attaching points had broken off when the person fell. So those are good examples that you can utilize to understand the specific scene. So once we've gone past it, so we've gone past people, we've gone past places, we've gone past parts, we've gone past, what's the last one we're looking at here now? We're looking at papers. So papers we're looking at now is the documentation, is the procedures, is the risk assessments, the permit to work, the DSCI, or the site safe declaration, or the JSA, all of those are various documents, the person's competency. Okay, the what was the instructions? Was there a job card for the day? Did the supervisor give them a proper job card? And was there a proper assessment of the activities prior to them starting? So all of this now is part of the processes of what we're writing down on our whiteboard to understand, have we covered everything that's relating to this activity, to this incident that's taken place? Do we have all the facts available right now? If we don't have all the various facts and documentation, then obviously we need to assign responsibilities to the team. So and so, Kellen, you need to sort out the permit to work. You need to make sure that you retrieve those documents from the supervisor or the standby, whoever has the permit. We need to get that document because it's vital. We need to get the risk assessment. So we start assigning responsibilities to various individuals. We're contacting the HR personnel, making sure that they are giving us any information we require for the individual. If it is in South Africa, many of our guys will understand that now we need to start compiling WCL2 forms and getting a copy of the person's ID copy and all of that, so that that information can go to the hospital so the person can get proper treatment. All right. So all of that now has been done. It's all been confirmed, and the person has been treated, and everything is sorted in that regards. But we are now worried about investigating this incident. So all the facts has been agreed, as I said, based on the preliminary information and findings. And then from that, we now start saying, okay, guys, when are we conducting the investigation? The investigation itself has already started from the preliminary investigation. We know that what do we need to do after preliminary investigation is done? We need to find some facts. Why? Because we're gonna become inundated or bombarded constantly from senior management, from the client personnel, and everyone else wants to know what happened in this incident. Let's use it in a worst case scenario. A fatal incident has occurred on your site. You're now trying your best to gain as much information as possible because you know that you're not going to sleep tonight getting called constantly regarding this specific incident and what happened. So what we need to do is we need to find some preliminary facts of what happened, and so that when we are giving the information to the people that are asking, this is the best route to take. When you're getting calls from management or from the client personnel, etc., you're going to tell them, this is the current information that I've obtained. This is what we currently know. I cannot vouch or I cannot guarantee that this is the full information. Obviously, we are still conducting an investigation. So, but this is what I currently know, and this is what I can share with you. Please do not go out and inform others that this is cast in stone. This is 100% facts, because as we said, it's the early stages of this investigation, and we are still at the point of getting facts in. Okay. Right. So, never disturb evidence unless it is absolutely necessary to save a life or prevent further harm. Now, what I normally do is I cordon off the area. I'll have safety personnel or safety reps or anybody within the area that can come in and support, depending on the team that you have. Again, you want to limit the amount of people coming in the area, disturbing evidence, etc., coming in wanting to take photographs and videos and post it on social media. You don't want all of that. So you want to do your best, your utmost best, to ensure that everyone's that you have there are only the people that you trust, that you want within that area, and everyone else must stay out of that area. Get your barricading in place, barricade the area and make it as big as possible, as big as you possibly can. The bigger the better. Okay, because you don't want onlookers coming in and wanting to come and look at what transpired. Then you're going to put up signages as well. Do not enter the area, incident scene, and you can put your phone number or the site manager or project manager's phone number on there as well, so that they know who to contact for any additional information. Okay. As I said, for collecting evidence, good investigations are built on facts, not assumptions. Evidence must be gathered quickly and systematically before it disappears, it degrades, or is inadvertently altered. A comprehensive evidence base allows investigators to reconstruct events accurately and identify contributing factors at every level. Physical and documentary evidence, photographs and CCTV footage, permit to work documents, risk assessments. We've gone through all of these already. Okay. Environmental and physical data, weather conditions at time of incident, measurements and site dimensions. Very, very important to have. You find that, when you're conducting an investigation, it's good to have a measuring tape with you, or I don't know if many of you have used the laser, the digital tape for measurements. If it's a large area, you need to use a measuring wheel, or also you'd use things like anemometers, etc., to check the temperature at the time of incidents. So all of that information can form part of your investigation. And it can be vital in your investigation. Then you'd consider your factors like noise, etc. Could that have played a part in this incident? And that's something that we obviously need to establish within the investigation. So never make an assumption that something is not important. Rather treat it as secondary evidence or information that you would still want to record. And when you're conducting your investigation, you can then look at your facts and say, okay, this is not important. This is important based on your information you have when you are conducting the investigation. As I said, evidence disappears quickly. Assign dedicated evidence custodians at the scene as soon as possible. As I said, it's not a nice thing to conduct an investigation, especially a fatal incident. Um, so it's best to understand and know these rules now. Practice them even with your minor first aid cases or your near misses, etc. Practice them now and constantly do it in such a way that you will make sure that when something serious does happen one day, hopefully it does not, but if you are in a situation where you have to investigate such a situation, you understand it and it becomes second nature to you. You don't even need to think about what you need to do. It's like conducting a drill. Sorry, somebody's. Sorry, so? Thank you. All right, so it's like conducting an emergency drill. We understand that the more we do it, the better we become at it. When there is an actual emergency, we understand what to do. So as we said, witness interviews are one of the most valuable tools in an investigation and one of the most easily mishandled. A good investigator creates a safe. Please, guys, please turn off your mics, please. Hello, guys. Guys, please. Can you turn off your mics? Thank you. All right, so witness interviews, as I said, it's one of the most important aspects, and it's most easily mishandled. A good investigator creates a safe, non-threatening environment where people feel comfortable sharing what they truly experience. The goal is understanding and not blame. Very important. Keep this always on the top of your mind, that we are not here to assign blame. We know that as safety people, we find ourselves being drawn into this thing of we have this notion that we want to find the person that's done the wrong, and then we want to blame that person, or we want to discipline that person in that regards. But truth of the matter is, we stay as neutral as possible when we're conducting these investigations, okay? Ask open questions. Tell me what's happened. What were you doing at the time? What did you see or hear? What happened next? And what made the job difficult? So those are the kind of examples of questions that you can ask when you are interviewing your witnesses or even your injured party as well, right? Listen more than you speak. Let the witnesses or witness describe events in their own words. Very important, ladies and gentlemen, do not lead your witnesses. Do never ask leading questions that open yourself up for situations that you don't want to be in, where people start saying that you are leading the witness in an investigation, because then it shows that you are being biased. So when you're asking your questions, always allow the person to speak. Don't say, you remember you told me yesterday you were not happy with your supervisor, and your supervisor told you this. You don't ask questions that leads the witness into an answer or question, and you want to always ask open-ended questions so that it forces the person to speak openly. Don't say, were you feeling sick yesterday? Yes. Were you cold? No. You understand? Those are the questions that you want to stay away from. Try your best to ask questions that allows the person freedom to speak. Avoid these approaches. Why didn't you follow the procedure? This is a very, very good nugget to remember. We learned that when it comes to asking questions in investigations, we refrain from using why. Why is seen as a judgmental a type of questioning. Okay, so it's important. I know we use the 5 whys. It sounds a bit weird to say don't use why, but then we use 5 whys when it comes to techniques. But when it comes to asking questions to the injured or to witnesses, we refrain from using why. Who is responsible for this and whose fault is it? Why? Because again, we are assigning blame. We're looking for somebody to discipline or possibly to fire. Okay. Leading questions shut down honest communication and bias your findings. They signal blame, not inquiry, and you will stop learning the moment you start accusing. Finding the root causes. Never stop at the first answer. Surface level causes an unsafe act, a momentary lapse, almost always mask deeper systemic failures. The 5 why techniques drive investigators past the immediate cause to the underlying conditions that made the incident possible. So a worker fell. The ladder was moved. It was not secured. No securing of equipment, never ordered. Okay, so we're saying we're saying the worker fell, the ladder was moved, that was not secured. Why was it not secured? There was no securing equipment available for that activity to make that activity safe. And why was that the case? Because it was never ordered. We can possibly even go further than it. Why was it never ordered? You might find that there was a budget constraint or there was something else. Somebody didn't do what they were supposed to do within the organization. I know it sounds again like it's a blame aspect, but in many cases you find that this is the case that happens. A supervisor orders something, it goes through to the warehousing department, and somebody was supposed to order it and they forget to order it, so it was never placed on their priority list. Somebody goes and continues the work because they need to continue with the work activity, and for them to do that work they needed a specific part to make that activity safe as well. Nobody looks at the go no go aspect of the activity. Everyone just continues because why? Production comes first in many people's minds. Okay, I know we like that old silly cliche of safety first, but the reality is it's production first, and the mantra should be production first and it's safety always. Not only in the beginning is safety important, it's important during the activity and it's important at the end of the activity as well. Okay, so the root cause is really the worker. Effective investigators examine leadership, planning, supervision, training, equipment procedures, the work environment, communication systems, and organizational processes to find the real failures and where they occurred. Okay, so corrective and preventative actions, very important. A thorough investigation means nothing if it does not lead to meaningful improvements. Every finding must be matched with an action that genuinely reduces the likelihood of recurrence. Before closing any action, ask, will this actually prevent it from happening again? If the answer is uncertain, find a better action. Something that I also like to share at this point is I like to add, when it comes to investigations and conducting the investigation, and we're at the point now after the process is taken place, we now need to find immediate actions from the preliminary investigation that we've done. We need to now implement preliminary corrective actions to ensure that that activity, if it does have to continue the following day or the day after that, that the activity that's been done should ensure that nothing else should happen from this incident. Okay, so it's your preliminary observations. We've said, okay, these are the few gaps that we found. What are we going to implement now to ensure that this incident, based on what we currently have or know, it should not be a recurring incident based on the information that we've gathered. Then you conduct your full investigation. You have your committee. You're doing whatever technique you're utilizing, whether it's taproot or scat, ICAM, etc., which we're going to go into a little bit more detail on. From that, we then derive our findings, and from the findings, we now put suitable corrective action, which are those that are there to correct the items that we find that are mishaps or gaps within the system. And then we also have preventative actions, which are there to prevent future incidents from taking place based on that incident. All right. What I also like to implement is sustainable actions, meaning that these are long-term actions that are mostly linked back to your systems, system-related aspects on control measures to prevent this from becoming a systemic issue, either within a project or within an organization, etc. You look at your sustainable actions that are long-term actions that will ensure that even on another project, this incident should not happen again. Why? We are utilizing our learnings from it and we are sharing it across the board to ensure that everyone understands what happened, why did it happen, and what we're doing to ensure that it does not happen again. Okay? And then we obviously have our various controls. We're following a similar approach when it comes to your hierarchy of controls, okay? And then we look at engineering controls to eliminate the hazard at the source through design changes and equipment upgrades. We obviously know from a hierarchy of control, we're looking at elimination, substitution, engineering controls, and then we go on to administrative controls. And last but not least, we look at our PPE. Then we look at procedure and planning improvements. I want to state this now in front of everybody, and I know this is recorded, so it'll be around for maybe until I'm dead. Procedures and documentation, ladies and gentlemen, will not save lives, okay? It is important that we have proper documentation in place. It is important that we communicate the various documentations, etc., to people, but understand this, that documentation themselves do not save lives. Okay. I need to put that out there because you find many people that believe that, oh, if the risk assessment was done in a better way, if it was more professionally done, it could have prevented this person from being injured or killed. The truth of the matter is, in 99% of the cases, that person would have still been injured and still been killed, whether that documentation was done any better than what it was. Why? Because a paper itself cannot prevent a person from being injured. It's like saying a permit to work should have prevented that person from dying. A permit to work cannot stop an individual from doing something that is even sometimes outside of the confines of their permits or outside of the authority of what they're given for them to execute that work accordingly. That is just unfortunate, but it is the case in majority of cases that you find that somebody went, they've changed something. Some of the most common factors you find in investigations is poor judgment. A person acted incorrectly because there was poor judgment involved in the decision that they made at the time, and it caused them to get injured or killed. Another common one is management of change. A person continued an activity, and there was no management of change that was conducted. Those are common factors that you find that keep on creeping up, where people have made the wrong decisions or they understood that there's a management of change that's required. They look at it and say, there's too much work and effort required for us to execute that work. Let's continue with what we have. And then boom, something happens, and then we conduct the investigation, and then we find people made the wrong decisions. Their job was being rushed. The supervisor implied haste. So the workers obviously wanted to please their supervisor, so they were cutting corners together. And then you find that maybe it's a incorrect decision by an individual, or it was a group decision that caused the incident to take place. These are some of the common factors that you investigate, that you find within your investigations. Okay. And then training and supervision is a common one that always comes up, especially depending on where you're working, which countries you're working on, which industries you're working in as well, also plays a major role. All right. You can, if I look at the sector now that I'm currently in with the renewable space, you find that it's a common factor that you have an issue relating to training and supervision. Also, you have a major factor where the majority of your workers are general workers. So they are unskilled labor. That's the vast majority within the sector. And obviously, it's our duties to train them up, to upskill them, to get them to a better level. But unfortunately, this is the beast that you are dealing with. within the renewable spaces. In other sectors, you find that majority of the people are skilled labor, and then you get your general workers that are there to support the skilled labor. In the renewable spaces, it's very, very different. Okay. And then you have communication and leadership. Ensure lessons learned are shared across the organization and that leaders visibly champion the improvements. Common investigation mistakes. Even experienced safety professionals can fall into patterns that undermine the quality of an investigation. These mistakes not only produce weak reports, they create conditions for the same incidents to happen again. Recognize and actively avoid these pitfalls. Blaming people and jumping to conclusions, poor evidence and collection and witness handling, weak reporting and ineffective actions, and now with AI that's come into the game, as I said, I've done trainings with you guys previously on utilizing AI, but be very careful of using AI when it comes to investigations because it will give you the book information and not always steer you in the right direction. Sometimes you can try it out and ask its opinion on a matter and see what it gives you. But in most cases, the best is always trust your gut. Go in with your experience and your knowledge when you're conducting your investigations and make sure that you are doing a proper, thorough job. Poor investigations create repeat incidents. The cost of cutting corners is measured in future injuries. Okay, this is just a few examples of some techniques that we use. Okay, some of them you might know, some of them you might not. Um, I will share this presentation as well in PDF format. I will share it with everyone within the group, within the WIB Academy group. So you can get the slide from there, but it'll be obviously PDF, and then you can read through the information for better understanding on these various aspects. Okay, so we have the 5 whys, very commonly used, right? Advantages, it's simple and quick to apply, requires no specialist training, and identifies underlying causes fast. What's good about the 5 whys as well is that you can combine it with your other techniques that you're utilizing. So you can use your 5 why techniques and you can utilize your others, your RCAT or your SCAT analysis, whatever you're going to utilize, okay? The limitation of it is can oversimplify complex multi-causal events and may miss systemic or organizational factors. So obviously I'm giving you guys some of the advantages, some of the limitations of the various techniques. You can decide what is best for you to utilize, okay? So then we have our common RCAT or RCA, root cause analysis. So your root cause analysis is a structured, systematic approach to identifying the fundamental causes of serious incidents, not just the immediate triggers. RCAs moves beyond surface level findings to expose systemic failures in equipment processes. So the root cause analysis, as I've mentioned, it's a very, very good tool to be utilized to understand deeper aspects relating to management systems or organizational culture that allowed the event to occur. So it's best for serious injuries, significant property damage, and repeat incidents requiring systemic solutions. Industries that it's mostly utilized is mining, manufacturing, construction, and utilities, where systemic failure patterns occur. Some of the key advantages that it identifies systemic and organizational failures that, if left unaddressed, will produce future incidents. Okay. Next one, which is a very powerful one. If you've worked in the Middle East, especially in Qatar and Saudi, etc., this is one of the more sought after qualifications for a safety professional to have. Okay, so yeah, I'll advise anybody to spend that money if they are interested in working out in those parts to spend that money and conduct this training, especially the 5-day training, because the 5-day training they go a bit deeper. I've conducted the 3-day training, but the 5-day they go into the software as well. I was lucky enough that the gentleman that trained us on the tap route also gave us a good understanding of the software. So he made us work and play around with the software as well, which is not normally the case if you're doing the 3-day training, okay? But yeah, if you can, spend that money and do the taproot. It's very, very good. All right, so your taproot is a highly structured, evidence-based investigation system developed for high-consequence industries. It uses a defined set of causal factor charts and root cause trees to guide investigators systematically from incident timeline reconstruction through to corrective actions. Its rigor makes it particularly valuable for fatalities and process safety failures as well. Okay. It's best for, as I said, serious injuries, fatalities, and major process safety failures. Industries that mostly use it are the oil and gas sector, mining, chemical, and aviation. Its approach is structured, causal factor charting with evidence-based root cause trees. What's nice about the system as well is that you can simplify it. You can utilize your sticky notes that you would utilize to conduct your investigation, that you would use from your incident that took place, and then you'd also go backwards as well from your incidents that you've conducted, and you would start understanding where from those activities, what trees need to be opened within your software, and that will guide you through the process when you're going through it. It's not something, it's so simple that if you decide as a team that no, this thing is not a factor at all, you can put an X on it on the software, and then no other trees will open relating to that specific factor. Okay, so that's how, what makes it a very, very good tool that gives you the actual root causes when you are done. But at the end of the conducting this investigation, you will 100% know which was the correct root cause when you're conducting your incident investigation, and which one of those were your contributing factors or causal factors. Okay. And then you have your ICAM. What is ICAM? It's an incident cause analysis method. Was developed specifically for high potential and fatal incidents. It takes a system thinking approach, examining not just what went wrong at the sharp end, but the failed defenses, organizational conditions, and management system gaps that created the environment for the incident. Now, if you looked at the previous one of the taproot, it also follows a similar factor where it looks at what defenses failed. And it also, what I like about the taproot also is that it looks at some of the defenses that worked. So it identifies what worked, that you indicate on your chart when you are doing it, when you are conducting your chart aspect. You will identify what went well and also where were the gaps. So what defenses failed, and why did those defenses fail? And then we obviously go deeper, okay? And in the application details, best for fatalities and high potential incidents with serious injury or loss of life potential. Industries are mining, construction, and utilities sector with elevated fatal risk profiles, and focused areas of failed defenses, individual actions, task environment conditions, as well as an organizational factors. Okay. If I can recall properly, I think Anglo used to use this many years back, if I can recall, or they were using ICAM or ICAS, but it was one of those with a similar approach on conducting your incident investigations. Okay. Okay, next you got your tripod beta. These again are mostly utilized in the industries where you are working, like in your nuclear industries, where there is, let's say for an example, there was a failure within a system. If you go back and look at a situation like maybe a Chernobyl or something to that extent, they would have utilized a similar approach with looking at the failures, latent failures within the processes and what's actually failed within the system. So it's used a lot when you think of it. It's used a lot in the process safety field, where they will utilize the tripod beta in conducting their investigations. Okay. So its core focus is identifying barrier failures and latent organizational weaknesses that undermined them. Okay, undermined them. Then you have your bow tie analysis. You can use this as well also for conducting your uh, risk assessments. Okay, so your bow tie analysis is the bow tie method provides a compelling visual method for understanding major hazard risks shaped like a bow tie. The diagram places the critical event, the top event at the center, with threats on the left side and consequences on the right. Barriers and controls are mapped on both sides, making it an exceptionally powerful tool for both risk assessment, as I mentioned, and post-incident investigations. Okay, it's best for major hazard events and process safety management. Industries are energy, mining, and chemical processing sectors. Key advantage is visually maps threats, preventative barriers, and consequence mitigation controls in a single clear diagram, ideal for communicating risk to leadership. Okay, so it's a much more simplified process and approach, but it still helps you to identify various gaps within the system. And then you have your fault tree analysis, which is also very similar to your tripod beta. It follows a similar approach in identifying various trees that contributed, and it looks at hardware failures, human errors, and system failure faults, making it especially powerful for complex engineering and equipment related incidents. Now you would find that they utilize this, especially your engineers, etc., would utilize this a lot when it comes to finding faults within an engineering approach or engineering failure on an equipment failure. Those that are working in the renewable sector with your solar panels, you would know that if an inverter failed or an STS has failed, they would then go in and they would work backwards to understand, okay, where did this failure happen? How did it happen? What was the cause of it? And then that's how they start conducting the investigation. More of an engineering approach when conducting an investigation. Okay. Again, you have your event tree analysis, right? Best for fire, explosion scenarios and evaluating emergency response adequacy. Industries are mostly chemical processing, energy generation, and nuclear facilities. Key advantages are explores the full range of multiple possible incident outcomes from a single trigger event, right? And then you have your barrier analysis, which is also a very good one to be utilized, that focuses a lot on where were there latent failures on the barriers that should have been in place to prevent an individual from being injured. Okay, it's best for fall from height vehicle incidents, confined space entries, and energy isolation failures. Industries include construction, mining, and utility sectors where physical barriers are primary line of defense. Key advantages directly identifies missing or failed barriers and produces highly actionable corrective measures. So the reason why I'm sharing all of these various techniques as well with everybody is to understand that not every incident you would utilize the same approach. Not every sector or situation or area, wherever you're working, you would always want to utilize the same technique or the same approach when conducting these investigations. Considering, as I've mentioned, there's an engineering fault, an engineering incident that's taken place. Let's rather look at a fault tree analysis, or let's rather look at a tripod beta. When an incident happens, maybe it's a minor incident and it has a low hurt potential. What your acronym will be your LHP. What's it? Low hurt? Yeah, LHP. You would then say the low hurt potential does not require me to go and conduct a full RCAT investigation or a full taproot investigation, because it could never have gotten any worse than a minor cut. So what you would rather do is, then you're not saying I'm not going to conduct the investigation. It's just as that I'm not going to waste too much time and effort on conducting an investigation, and I know that the worst that could have come from this incident would have been a cut, like a paper cut or something to that extent. So what would you do? You'd consider using the 5 whys, or you could even consider utilizing another good one is also your SCAT analysis, okay, which we'll touch on quickly. So when it comes to HOP, I've done a training on this as well. If you haven't watched it, go on Facebook on YouTube, sorry, and you can watch the training that I've done on understanding what is HOP about. human and organizational performance. But in a nutshell, HOP in this regards for an investigation represents a shift in safety philosophy from blaming individuals for errors to understanding why the system made those errors likely. HOP-informed investigations treat human error as a normal, predictable feature of complex systems and focuses on learning to improve the work environment, system design, and organizational conditions rather than assigning faults. So when you're conducting a HOP investigation, the approach on an HOP investigation is one of learning, learning, learning. That's all that you want to do when it comes to a HOP investigation. Okay? Why? Because they do not consider even an incident where a person has done something wrong as something that they needed to consider. They want to understand, why did that individual make that decision at the time? What did the system that we had, that we've given them, have we trained them properly? Have we ensured they had suitable supervision, suitable understanding of the task that needed to be done, relevant tools, whatever? We would look at everything else except why did that person make that wrong decision when they got injured, because that's not what they want to understand. They understand that humans are fallible creatures. They will make incidents, accidents every now and again. They want to understand, why did our system fail us, that we do not ensure that however that person decided to conduct the activity, was there any other measures that we could have done in such a way, or improved on the system to ensure that this person would have not made that decision and they would have not been injured. That's the mindset and the psyche when it comes to following a HOP investigation. Context drives behavior. Understand the conditions and pressures that shape decisions, not just the decision itself. And learn and improve. Investigation should generate system improvements, not disciplinary actions. Okay, that's the HOP approach. And then we have the SCATs, which is your systematic cause analysis technique. So your overview is of your SCATs is a standardized investigation tool developed by the International Loss Control Institute. It provides a structured framework by categorizing both immediate causes, unsafe acts and conditions, and basic causes, personal and job factors, using a consistent taxonomy, ensuring investigations are repeatable and comparable across sites and time. Okay? Best for workplace injuries, investigations, and environmental release incidents requiring standardized documentation. Industries mostly uses construction, mining, manufacturing operations with multi-site consistency requirements. Key advantages: standardized, immediate, and basic cause analysis that supports trend tracking across the organization. And then we have your modes, management, oversight, and risk. You have your various techniques of selection. So this will guide you guys when you are reading this as well, to understand that for different type of incidents, as I've mentioned previously, what is the most suitable technique that we would utilize depending on the incident type and the specific activity as well that was being performed. As I said, from a process safety event, let's look at these factors. From an equipment failure, let's look at those. Okay. And that will guide you to ensuring that you utilize the right technique for the investigation to get you the results that you're looking for. So no single technique fits every incident. The best investigations often combine two or more methods to address both technical and organizational dimensions. I actually like to utilize a process flow sequencing of events from the incidents as well, from when an incident has taken place, to understand, okay, let's look at the sequence of events that led to the incident. Prior to that, the person came to work, they've conducted a toolbox talk, they went to site to the supervisor gave them instructions on what they needed to do, etc. Then they went to collect their tools, they got their PPE, they went to site, they signed the DSCI, or they communicated the various documentation, and then they proceeded with the activity. What happened after that? Okay, now we're coming closer to the scene of the incident that took place, or it happened after lunch. The person went for lunch, they came back after lunch. While they were continuing activity, while they were working, they then proceeded to cut into a piece of steel or metal, whatever it was, and during that process, the person got injured, and this is what was seen thereafter. Then it was obviously after the incident, who was called, emergency response came out. We check the time factor, because why? We're working on a proper timeline. Also, after the incident takes place, we need to understand what happened after it on the best treatment that the person was given, to understand if there was any gaps from an emergency perspective, to ensure that we can improve on that from learnings for the future, to ensure that the person is the next person that is injured is given much more better attention or better treatment, to ensure that our learnings are improved on. Okay. So key takeaways, world-class investigation standards: protect and preserve, protect people first, secure and preserve evidence without delay. Facts and root causes, focus on facts, understand work as it is actually performed, and dig to true root causes. Improve and share, improve systems, share lessons learned across the organization to prevent recurrence. This is very, very, very important. One of the companies that a few of you guys would have remembered in the industry before was called Kent's. They had a very good system that they would utilize, which was called MOCA. Their acronym for MOCA was Monitoring of Corrective Actions, which for me was one of the better approaches on things, because what you identified was that even though an incident investigation was done, and it was done properly, there was proper controls of corrective measures and preventative measures. But what happens is, over time, the same aspect starts creeping back into the system. Why? Because we're not monitoring, we're not ensuring that these things are not becoming a factor again, or we have not sent our team out to continuously investigate or to monitor that these repeated actions or repeated gaps and barriers are no longer prevalent, or they're no longer creeping into our system. So by monitoring those corrective actions that they conducted on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, depending on the various aspects, they ensured that those aspects, those issues, never raise their heads again. So learning from the incidents is important. What do we do with that information is important. Sharing that information across organizations. What I also do is I like to bring a lot of the incidents, especially the serious ones, into your inductions, so that you're communicating it to your workers, even the new workers, when they join in the company, that they are aware of the incident, that they're aware of the learnings from the incident, and that they are aware of what we identified in that investigation and how to prevent it from becoming a further factor for them as well. Okay. Then you continuously communicate them during your toolbox talks, so that it's constantly refreshed in the people's minds. Another thing that I like to do is pull the information into the risk assessments and method statements, so that in future activities, even in your baselines, you can always remember this within your organization, within your system, to remember that this incident resulted in an LTI. This activity resulted in a serious high potential that could have resulted in an employee being killed. This incident resulted in an actual fatal incident. Okay, so those are the factors that you would pull into certain documentation, and those will be perfect for sustainable continuous actions thereafter. It'll be in your company organizational baseline, in your SHE plan as well. At times you pull it into your SHE plan, where there's a remembrance of that incident that's taken place within your organization, to ensure that the learnings continue. Even if you as the head of safety, or the corporate safety manager or director, you leave the organization, that learning is still fresh in anybody that joins the organization. They will still see the information and understand it, and they would be able to ensure that it does not happen again. The quality of your investigation determines the quality of your prevention Every incident investigated properly is one less family that may have to receive bad news in the future. Thank you for joining WIB Academy and HSE Connection Point, changing the way the world thinks about safety. Thank you, everyone. So I know we've gone 20 minutes over. There was also a bit of an issue. So I'll open it up now for any questions. Anyone, any questions? You can ask your questions. If you don't have any questions, we can close, but if you do, I'm listening. I see a couple of thumbs up. Thanks. Any questions from anyone? Happiness? Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed the session. As I said, ask any questions on the groups. Personally, you can send me a message as well. If you like any additional information, please feel free, and I will gladly support you guys and share that information through to you. Once again, thank you very much, and I appreciate your time, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Goodbye.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.